Good day. I am astrologer Lateesha Hinton with Soul Spread Wisdom. And today I want to talk about the sun in the sign of Sagittarius. The sun has ingressed into the sign of Sagittarius today. It has transited and traveled through the sign of Scorpio for the past 30 days. And has made its way into the sign of Sagittarius. So we will be and are now in an energy shift from what was. And so let's just talk about first what the sun is and what it represents. So the sun, of course, as we look to the ancient astrologers, as it relates to the zodiac, planetary alignments, planetary placements. The sun, of course, is at the very center of all of the other planets. All of the other planets orbit around the sun. The sun, as the ancients would have it, represents the higher intellect. It is also associated with our perspectives, the way that we see the world, the way that we interpret the world, our vision and our view and perspective of the world around us and our place in it. So the sun, so when we look to Mercury, we often think of Mercury as the mind and communication. And Mercury actually has to do with gathering data and dissecting data on this level. But the sun represents this higher intellect, again, the higher way of seeing the world. This idea of brilliance, of sight. And when we look to the glyph, of course, it is this perfect circle with the dot in the middle. It brings us to a centering place when we think about the sun, a centering place for our direction and our sight. Thinking of the third eye, actually, at the very center, being able to see clearly what is. So whatever is happening with the sun in the chart, it is going to affect our intellect, whether it will be made more clear, whether it will be made more foggy, depending on what aspects are happening with it from other planets or its placement. So when we talk about the sun, when it was in the sign of Scorpio, it brought us to a place where we were analyzing death and loss. Whenever the sun is transiting through the sign of Scorpio, it brings us to this place of analyzing pain and loss and trauma and competition, strategizing for power. These are themes that the sun or the higher intellect is experiencing as it transits the sign of Scorpio. And even if we see this in the natal chart, the sun in the sign of Scorpio, these are themes that are brought to the forefront. So as it ingresses into the sign of Sagittarius, it takes on a new flavor altogether, whereas before it's very still in the sign of Scorpio, it's very quiet, it's very calculated, as the sign of Scorpio is fixed water. There is a huge shift when it goes into the sign of Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is mutable fire, and the ancients called the mutable signs double-bodied. And what they meant by double-bodied was that it takes on both the signs that stand before it and after it, giving it a doubled nature to the sign. So it is said that the first 15 degrees of the doubled bodied signs take on the characteristics of the sign before it. So the first 15 degrees of Sagittarius will take on more of the energy of Scorpio, as the last 15 degrees of Sagittarius would take on the energy of Capricorn. So that is something to be said when we think about the nature of Sagittarius. And so Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So wherever Jupiter is in the chart at the time, it is going to flavor how the sun is operating as it moves through the sign of Sagittarius. Now, the sun is the ruler of Leo, and Leo is fixed fire. So the sun moving into the sign of Sagittarius is in its element of fire. So it is a comfortability for the sun being in the sign of Sagittarius. So whenever a planet moves into a sign that is not its own home, he is a guest in the temple or the home of that sign. So Jupiter, as the ruler of the sign of Sagittarius, is playing host for the sun as he moves into his sign. So Jupiter brings what it is that he has to his tools to offer to the sun as a guest. And so, this was an ancient custom. Whenever someone would come over to your house, it is your responsibility to host them and to provide for them the things that would make them feel the most comfortable. So what does Jupiter have to offer the sun as he has come over to be a guest and to be a visitor in his temple or in his home? So he has the warmth that the sun is accustomed to, because the sun, of course, rules Leo and is in a fire sign in Leo, and the sun is exalted in the sign of Aries, which is also fire. So when the sun comes into Sagittarius, he is accustomed to this fire and this warmth. So that is great. And then also Jupiter adds his benefits of being this great and large giver, providing for the sun an expansion, an expansiveness of this fire nature, and this ability to toggle back and forth between this fixed energy of Scorpio and this cardinal energy of Capricorn. And they combine and meet somewhere in the middle in the sign of Sagittarius. And so Jupiter, as the great benefic, brings all of his jovial attitude, mindset, his trust and belief that things are going to work out just fine. He brings that to the sun, and that impacts the vision and the higher intellect of the sun as it transits through the sign of Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is associated with beliefs and with travel and with what it is that you want to philosophize about. So Jupiter is the great guru, as is called in Vedic astrology. He's the great teacher. And so in his rulership of Sagittarius, Sagittarius is the masculine sign of Jupiter, whereas Pisces is the feminine sign of Jupiter. And here we find a Jupiter and his energy of Sagittarius with the sun here, that takes on this perspective of the world that everything will work out fine. When the sun is in Sagittarius in the natal chart, you find someone who has this great optimism about life, and they can often believe that no matter what is happening, we will come to the other side. They can always see the glass half full, and that is a part of that Jupiterian energy that is expansive, that is larger than life. Often with the sun in Sagittarius, we have a personality that is larger than life. So for us who are experiencing this transit, it brings a lightness to our perspective of the world, to the way that we see the world and the way that we see ourselves in it. And so it highlights, it brings its warmth, and it brings its communication ability to higher heights within our chart. So there are conversations that we will be having about what it is that we see oftentimes going on in the world, and bringing ourselves into these philosophical conversations, and in asking ourselves, or even saying, I think that I was having a conversation in the middle of the night with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the Black Panther. And there came before us this debate, a friendly debate about whether the Killmonger was, whether his intent was initially harmful when he made his way over to Wakanda, and he challenged the king to take his place. And so my friend, in a very Sagittarian way, glass half full type of mindset, was saying, no, I think that when he initially came, his way of thinking was that he wanted to negotiate. He wanted to work together. He didn't want to necessarily take over and become king. He just wanted to help the other blacks in the world. And so that's a very Jupiterian way, or Sagittarian way of seeing the world, seeing that giving people the benefit of the doubt and believing the very best in a person, and not automatically going to the negative. This is the higher end, the higher operating way of the sun in Sagittarius, seeing things for the best, hoping for the best, and then being able to move yourself forward in life in such a way that you actually receive some of the great benefits, because you just believe that things will work out for the best. And that is one of the great benefits of the sun in Sagittarius. Now, on the flip side, the sun in Sagittarius, well, Jupiter, there can be a lot of excess. It could be overdone. There could be over optimism. There can be a place where you're not really grounded in the facts, and not really handling the situation as it is, and actually, dealing with things, in a very practical way, because you just know that God is going to come through. So you miss a lot of the details, because the intellect, the higher intellect, the higher way of seeing things, as the sun is in Sagittarius, is that they will work themselves out. It'll work itself out. So a lot of times, a lot of the details that need to go into what is required for things to work out are abandoned. So that is, where the over optimism can come into play as it relates to the sun in Sagittarius. And that is via the transit, or if it is in the natal chart. So wherever Jupiter is in the sky, it is going to indicate what type of Jupiter Sagittarian energy we will feel, because Jupiter is the depositor for the sun in Sagittarius. So Jupiter right now is finishing up his run through the sign of Capricorn. And so Jupiter in the sign of Capricorn is in his fall. Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer. So he has fallen from great heights and is now moving through the sign of Capricorn, where he is not really able to bring the expansion and the jovial nature the way that he likes to. He is experiencing some restrictions, as it were. And so he will be moving out of Capricorn just as the sun will be ingressing into Aquarius. So as we experience this particular transit of the sun through Sagittarius, Jupiter, the depositor, will be in Capricorn. So we will have, we will definitely have the expansive way of seeing the world, but it won't be as grandiose as Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is in the sign of Capricorn, not able to really expand in the way that he normally does. And this may be a good thing, because again, sometimes with the sun in Sagittarius, because of Jupiter's great ability to just see the best, sometimes practicality is thrown to the wind. Now, Sagittarius, being a double body sign, is always moving, is always moving and needs to move and needs to communicate with people and understand their thoughts and how they see the world, and then express what it is that they feel. And there can be a stubbornness and a dogmaticness to the sun in Sagittarius, because the sun in Sagittarius, again, is between this energy of Scorpio and Capricorn. So, there is, when we talk about going higher, that is this energy of Capricorn being infused here in this double body sign. And then this fighter, that is connected to Mars, the ruler of Scorpio, being, imbued in this sign. So there can be a fight that comes with Sagittarius as it relates to what it is that they believe and their perspectives on the world and their intellect. Talking about the sun in Sagittarius, ready to fight for these higher ideas and a closed mindedness towards anyone else's beliefs. And this is when the sun is not operating at its best in Sagittarius. There could just be this dogmatic refusal to accept any other way of thinking and believing. But when the sun in Sagittarius, when the intellect, as it were, and the perception of the world is at its best in the sign of Sagittarius, when there are beautiful aspects being made to the sun in Sagittarius, then we have someone who can embrace other ways of thinking, other ways of believing and seeing the world, and embrace them and be able to communicate with all people from all walks of life, and be able to travel in the mind and travel by way of the body with the movement, with this fire movement, and bring warmth to people and embrace the warmth of other cultures and other beliefs, and an ability to incorporate the meat, if you will, from other cultures and other beliefs, and throw away the bones and add them to the life and be the better for it. So that is all that I have for the sun in Sagittarius. Again, my name is Lateesha with Soul Spread Wisdom, and you can find me at soulspreadwisdom.com if you would like to have a reading or a consultation with me, I have that available. I am currently updating some of my offerings and changing my site. So if there is a question that you have for me, you can reach me at info@soulsbreadwisdom.com. Thank you so much for listening. Ase 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 O Yod He Vav He.